A word to the wise, a little wisdom for the day. Self control is a strength, a calmness, and a mastery. You have to get to a point where your mood doesn't shift based on the insignificant actions of someone else. Don't allow others in control of the direction of your life. Don't allow your emotions to overpower your intelligence. Stay in your heart, stay in the truth, and be that guide. You are the steward of your ship. Stay in the faith and always ask for that guidance. So in the last few years, I've seen quite an influx, but in the last 6 months, it's been quite something, with relationships and seeing how people are connecting on a spiritual level, just in your everyday conscious life. If it's either in a job, standing at a supermarket, your physician, your bank, people in the passing, grocery stores, just in general, a lot of relationships that aren't making sense. A lot of anomalies that I've watched where people are standing there and next minute they just walk away. No question. Conversation isn't even finished. It's like people are running on subliminal programs, unconsciousness. And it's just like watching people sleeping, walking, that is going on and not even aware of the surroundings, and who they're, subconsciously or consciously with at this moment. So I thought that it was time that, basically put something they've had for a while. I read out conscious relationships, accelerating paths to relationships and healing. A lot of people in the last, since 2020 in their own individual life has been, a lot have been on a healing journey, either out in the wilderness, getting out by the water, getting into like a sound bath, or, basically working on their inner child, just in healing old wounds, old traumas, basically relationships that didn't work, families, friends, partners, marriages. Many since 2020 have gone in many different directions. A lot of people still out there today don't even understand what's going on because of the subliminal and sub programs that are, still playing in the background. So many people consciously and subconsciously, like I've said, this is going back to childhood, schools, your upbringing, the collective, especially in these big cities. A lot of people collectively in that type of energy space, are carrying and not even realizing they're carrying some of these programs. It's what you're watching, it's what you're consuming, what you're eating, what's in the foods today. Do you know what's in the foods? You're still eating a lot of that fast food. Part of your healing and raising your consciousness basically is about your health, and that is your wealth. And breaking out of some of these old programs. Fasting, when we start fasting, we start changing, we start eating healthier, we start, working within ourselves and raising ourselves. It's about, protecting our own heart space, and our own path that we're on. And these relationships are getting very tricky, especially the ones that are still a matriotic relationship and ones that are choosing to stay in even when it's not content, it ain't happy. And even though it doesn't feel right, it's kind of the old saying that I hear, it's like, I made my bed, I'm going to lay in it. Well, that can only go for so far, for so long. You're an individual. Everybody is an individual when they come onto the earth. And we all get tossed in situations. There's still some old um, religious beliefs, as I've talked to a few in the Eastern world that still run this, where it's arranged and, marriages, and how the older and older look at how this is and what the modern is today, and it's still a form of control and still an expectation, and setting up stuff on pedestals that shouldn't even be set up on pedestals, still looking at, where who's going to get the greater gain, who's going to be, part of the kingdom, who's going to be wearing the crown at the end of the day. There's all these different beliefs that are going on, these religious views. They're archaic, and they haven't worked for, thousands of years. They've done more damage than you can shake a stick at. But, until you start rising up and realizing what it is, and I notice today, there is a lot more modern day, couples that aren't and won't get, into a lot of these, relationships that families and others that are, always portraying, and basically reflection, and that's where the mirror and the looking back in, and, somebody living, a life through somebody else that they didn't live. And that's not for you or them to be doing that to either one. We are approaching a time when relationships are ready to go through a major redesign. The current paradigm isn't working. People are unsatisfied in love. People don't know how to make relationships work. And believing it or not, this isn't a bad thing, because when systems break down, that's when there's the room for change. I believe that what's happening in the area of intimate partnerships, the breakdowns, is forcing us to move towards a consciousness and a love. And it comes back to, as I always say, the unconditional love. Until you've done a lot of your own inner work and your own healing, and finding that you can be standing in that resonance of ability to radiate and project out the love and unconditional love, it's really hard for a true conscious relationship to form itself. There's always fears, there's always doubts, there's always falling short, there's always what if, but a lot of it is always work. There's always going to be work, but it's working to the greater. So what exactly is conscious relationship? It's a romantic relationship which both partners feel committed to sense of purpose, and the purpose is to growth, individual growth, collective growth, and coupled growth that makes the world a better place. See, at times we have a lot of relationships that we, going very small, and a lot of it is outer, but it's inner work, and it's what's radiated out. And we can, be in such a small, confined situation in our lives, but be projecting out way past it. And you've got to be able to be both standing on your own 2 feet. And once you collectively, radiate a similar frequency, with both wanting to grow and gain something beyond what the actual physical realm of the earth is, that is a true relationship. When 2 people come together with the intentions of growth and relationship and strive towards something much greater than the gratification, the partnership becomes a journey of evolution, and 2 individuals have an opportunity to expand more. They can alone. Deep satisfaction and long-term fulfillment arises as a result. So I always look at it as the 2 people that come in, you're still individuals. But we get into these programs, where it's like one's greater than the other one, and there's always this, who's going to be on top. And, I've watched where it's basically where the women have just pretty well shut out ran out. The men aren't even, there to be on the same conscious level. So saying is the rib, from a man to the woman. But it's basically you're two individuals that pretty well are on the same energetic frequency and can be standing there still on your own 2 feet if you're both not together. But know that if you're somewhere else, that you're still together and you can still grow because it's so much more. So, as I said, it is all about the welcome to the path of a conscious relationship. This is the next level of love. The conditioned couple is not attached to the outcome of the relationship, but the growth to come first. Not being attached to the outcome of the relationship does not mean you don't care what happens. It doesn't mean that you don't have a fantasy about how the relationship will turn out. What it means is you're more committed to the experience of the growth than you are of making the relationship work. The reality is where we're here to grow physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. When growth stops, we automatically feel like something's gone wrong because it is without growth, we aren't unfulfilling or fulfilling our soul's purpose. So if it's shallow, superficial, it's just because you're in a fear of being alone. We tend to do this, and it's just like getting out the comforter and pulling it over ourselves or the veil, and just making it a false reality, basically beginning to an end, a short, stint in life. People, as consciousness is, as we grow, and that's in any relationship, there's always going to be building, there's always going to be more, there's always going to be, strive and want that more. And that is the internal, that's the internal flame. But, sub and programmable programs, of family lineage, as we break that lineage. That's what, most came here to do, was to break out of all of that. And there's many that still want to drag others back into it, and that's usually a death sentence. It's about being able to, be in the room with many and feel that love and that abundance and that purpose and that strive, and to be with many that you can grow and keep striving, to something more. And that's usually the greater excitement. We want our partners to act in a certain way. We repress ourselves to please others, and soon enough, we feel small, oppressed, puzzled about who we become. The inviolable makes in relationships feels like a cage that we want to break out of. But the unfortunate truth is we're caged ourselves. And that's very much true. These circles, these dramatic situations, and like I said, it usually becomes like a death sentence because we usually cage ourselves because we didn't find that abundance and that happiness and that greater. And that's where it's like working, first of all, for a relationship to come online and be something greater. Is, like I said, to be in the relationship, but when you're not in that relationship, that you're, okay in your own skin and yourself out there in the world, because you came with dreams and, hopes, realities that you need to, be able to gain and have, because we're all individual. First of all, we all came for something, and it's finding that right connection and that right click that we can grow with the things we are, because there's many like-minded that want the exact same thing, but a lot don't know how to go about it. And then, like I said, they start falling into the fear, the doubt, the shame, the guilt, and it puts you back into that lower frequency. 528 is the hertz of the earth. 963 is God's frequency. And amongst all that, there's different hertzes that radiate between all our chakras, to what the lowest, 60 hertz frequency is, all the way up to what the love and the abundance frequency is, and what you radiate, and how you glow and shine, and how people act around you. Couples value growth more than anything else because they know this is the secret of keeping the relationship alive, even though growth is scary because it takes us into an unknown. The couple is willing to strive towards expansion, even at the risk of growing the relationship out. Because of this, the relationship maintains a natural feeling of aliveness and love between the couple, and does too. Each person is in a relationship is committed to their own shit. And that's the biggest thing. Is that when you're in relationships too, we all have shit. We all have stuff. We all have baggage. But the thing is that you're never going to shake it off. It's how you're going to deal and process through it. And the more shit that you have, that you carry, that you own, but if it becomes that crutch or that, resonance, that radiates, you're never going to have that true fulfillment, commitment, and relationship that you're really earning and, wanting to grow with. So you have to figure out what that is at the end of the day, and what is it doing to you, and what is it going to do to you in the future if you don't process through it, understand it, and put it away. Because many times it's going to put you back into a loop that's going to circle you back and bring you back into those types of relationships that you keep having, and keep asking, why do I keep having the same relationship? Because the same stuff keeps coming up, and every time it does, it's like a trigger. And then when you start putting it on the other partner, it becomes a bigger weight. And there's two ways that scenario can go. You can either blow that relationship to pieces, or it can just basically put like a millstone around your neck and pull you both down into something that's going to be, misery, and it's going to take you into more of a lower consciousness. So you need to make sure before you're getting in the relationship and all that stuff, that, you're able to own all your own stuff and keep your stuff for you. Conscious couples know that we all have wounds from past, and the understanding that these wounds will eventually be triggered, especially in relationships. In other words, they expect to feel abundance, trapped, rejected, overlooked, and any other shitty feeling that arise when we bond closely with other people. And that's kind of what I was talking about. There's a lot of triggers and a lot of things that go, but having the right conscious person with you when you do have those moments, but can help you to help them to work through it and then move on, and not to keep carrying it, And it's also basically, like I said, it's watching how your own spiritual growth is and checking in on your own clairs once in a while. And that's what it is. We all have our moments where we have our ups and down days and our situations. But the thing is that when it's constantly coming back around, then that's usually a signal that there's some work, or there's something that isn't in agreement, that has to work itself through. But it can't be beaten up either. There has to be a common ground with some of these situations that come arise. Conscious couple is willing to look at their past, their current, their issues in relationships because they know they're facing these belief systems and they can evolve in new relationships and realities. The dysfunctional pattern will dissolve, but only when we take responsibility for them first. But that's the thing that I even notice in some situations is like, when you do all the work and everything else, but somebody else has got that situation, but they won't let it go, and it keeps going around and around. But it wasn't the situation that, that person had already dealt with that and made it very clear. But when the other partner keeps bringing it up because they've got triggers of their own, but they're finding something else in the situation, because they can't deal with their own situation, it's usually a red flag and a trigger. And it's a situation that's going to keep going around and around a circle, and that relationship will never grow and will never evolve. Because there's always going to be something, and that's usually the mirrored effect that pops up, and that's already red flagging even that one that's having the triggering issues. And that's why some of these relationships aren't always a match made in heaven. All feelings are welcome, and no internal process is condemned. In the conscious relationship, there's room to feel anything. Not only that, there's room to express those feelings and fantasies to your partner. This is edging territory. It's not easy to do, but it's one of also the most healing things we can experience in our partnership. I mean, the biggest thing is basically the truth, and you have to speak how you feel. A lot of people are walking around numb, absolutely dead inside, and it shows in many, many relationships because they're scared to talk. They're scared to talk about their fantasies, scared to tell the partner for what it is. One of the biggest things that I always put down is that you have to talk about every single little thing that you feel and want, and it needs to be put out on the plate first, even if it scares you. Because if the situation on the table isn't talked about in the beginning of how you feel, then it's going to be a secondary trap that's going to cause some kind of, either to somewhat work or it's going to fail eventually. And so you have to express how you feel, but you also have to be considerate and to show, you can't be 1 foot in, little bit this and that, little mysterious and everything else, and then do a 360 and turn into a a nightmare. And many relationships do that. Honesty on how you're feeling everything is the best policy, first of all. And you have to get into the nitty gritty because there is expectations at times that do happen and they do occur on the earthly part of it all. We don't want it to. But until you maximize that consciousness and get to that, everlasting internal, love and unconditional love, these type of triggers and these type of situations will reoccur over and over again. Like I already said, we used to modeling and changing ourselves to please people we love because we don't want them to stop loving us. This stifles the love out of the connecting and the connections. The only option is to radically, honestly reveal parts of ourselves that are hard to share and letting our partners do the same. The lead to the feeling of knowing to see the truly understood and combination that will automatically enhance your love. The relationship is a place to practice love. Love ultimately is a practice of acceptance, being present, forgiveness, and stretching your heart into a vulnerable territory. And that's one of the biggest things. You know, it's not really what I want to say is roll the dice, but, you know, you have to stretch it out. You have to go a little bit of the extra the distance. You know, you really have to put your heart there. As they always say, put your heart on the sleeve at times. And I know that's the hardest thing. But like I said, if there's still barriers or signals, there's red flags, sirens going off, then that means that isn't the situation or the time or the event, you know. But sometimes we have to work on that. And sometimes we have to put it out. It's like a test just to see how you feel in these situations. But it's also being considerate of the other person that you want to be in that relationship with too. And to do it in a proper manner, in a respectful manner. So sometimes we treat love like it's a destination. We want to peak feeling all times, and when it's not, we're not satisfied with what the relationship has become. In my mind, this is missing the whole point of love. Love is a journey and an exploration. It shows up for all varied nonsense of your relationships, of asking yourself, what would love do here? The answer will be different every time. And because of this, you get to grow in ways you never have before. The conscious couple is fiercely committed to being the embodiment of love. And though there is a devotion and practice, love shows up in their lives and relationships in ways they wouldn't never imagine before. And that's the biggest thing, is that once you get to the consciousness of the, you know, unconditional and the love and the radiating love, and that's with anything, that's with animals, that's with people all around. You get to that point where your heart's so much that it's beyond, and it just radiates, and people want to, you know, get to know you. Some people really want to hate you. Some people just want to go right after you, you know. And so that's our own ability and our own selves to, you know, hold our alignment and hold ourselves accountable every single day on how we want that. And what we put out there and what we give is what we get back. And that's why not every single relationship in the world at this moment in time is on a good, clean connection right now. There's still too much programming. There's still too many things. And people are asking why there's so many men and women that are, you know, separated at this moment and off doing their own thing. Well, they're taking the ability and time to find themselves and do some of the things that they've had dreams and others that they've needed to work through. You know, and this is our school at a time, you know. And when you're ready and you're really feeling the love and your heart's just looks at that person and it's just pounding away, and that other person's feeling the exact way, then it's a match made in heaven. But it's an internal inside job that everybody on the earth has to work through. You know, that means that if it's with your kids, parents, grandparents, cousins, nephews, uncles, you know, every single person on the earth, but not every single person is going to radiate at the same frequency, the same conscious level, and not every relationship is going to look like a match in heaven. There is no major arm candy out there or anything that's going to radiate and complement you until you're completely being the one that's a compliment that people want to get to know you and to love you. But it all has to divinely connect. And you both have to be on the same frequency and connection and the wavelength for a true divine relationship. Have yourself a blessed, wonderful day. We'll see you on the next one. And know that I love you. And don't forget to like, share, and comment. Put down some of your reviews, what you think. We'll see where it goes. So have a good one. See you on the next one. Bye for now.